Namaskar. Through this video, I would try to make an unbiased effort towards introducing the concept of Ved, hopefully in a simple and interesting manner. Due to the nature of this subject, the video might be a bit long, and hence I request the viewers to not skip any parts and watch till the end to get a complete overview. The word Ved is derived from the root Vid, which means knowledge, with the suffix Dhaya, which means bhava or to emote. So the combination attributes as emote or bhava of knowledge, which means jnana or to know. Sayanacharya defines Ved as the unmatched supreme process towards unveiling fundamental eternal truths by getting rid of false perceptions. It is easy for us to move on from here and delve into the analytical and statistical introduction of Vedic literature. But since this is a video about introducing Ved, before we move ahead, we need to ask or try to understand, what do we infer by meaning to know? Because if we do not make an effort to understand the broader perspective of this term, it would be impossible to comprehend the universality and magnanimity of Ved. For if we fail to do that, we may treat Ved just as the oldest available literature of civilization or oldest book on ritual, health and metaphysical wisdom as interpreted by Western Indologists like Max Muller and Moritz Winternitz. So what is knowledge? To generalize, we can say that knowledge is timeless, limitless cosmos. What is known of it in past or in the process of knowing as of present or to be known in the future defines knowledge in an individual perspective. For example, fire. A child sees fire for first time. It goes near it if it finds it inviting and tries to touch it. The child gets burnt and then he or she becomes vigilant. The next time it sees fire, it will avoid it. The same is seen with other animals, for example, a leopard cub. However, when the child grows up as adult, it harnesses the same fire to create many things as it becomes aware of its properties either through experience or education. But the same is not seen with other animals as they attain adulthood. They still fear fire. So we observe that one manifestation as humans have harnessed fire by studying its fundamental properties, while the other manifestation is attached to its one primordial form. But the knowledge of fire with respect to its innate properties did not change for humans. We just discovered it and are still in a process of discovering it. Its properties since its primordial manifestations have existed through infinite past, present and will remain so through future. On cosmic level, the concept of time or limit of space is non-existent. The meaning of word Ved must hence be taken in similarity. As put forth by Manusmriti, the Vedas represent all forms of knowledge. Ved in a nutshell means everything that is known, to be known, or is in the process of knowing at all levels of cosmic manifestations, of which we humans are also a part. This process, its parameters and systemization is unique to each individual, yet on cosmic level it's constant. Hence Ved can be inferred on two levels: an all-encompassing pervasive knowledge that is beyond time and space constraint, and what is understood, inferred or applied of it from human perspective with respect to achieving, systemizing, implementing and cataloging of the knowledge through tenses of time. The human aspect of Ved is beautifully explained in the text Siddhanta Kaumudi. Siddhanta Kaumudi defines the combination of Vid Dhatu with Dhaya Pratyaya in four fundamental all-encompassing derivations. Sattarthak, or the expanse of knowledge in all direction. We can loosely translate it as the knowledge that was, is being or will be perceived of its limitlessness through all tenses of time. An example could be the knowledge of origin and expanse of cosmos, which keeps on revealing with time. Jnanarthak. We can loosely translate it as the knowledge that was, is being or will be learned or documented through all tenses of time. An example would be all algorithms of laws of nature which enable us to create technological advances. For example, we have data transfer and communication techs like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell phone communication, and satellite television, which were unknown to us in the past. But were they non-existent? No. We just became aware of them with a need and perspective. Vichararthak. We can loosely translate it as the knowledge that was, is being, or will be inferred or established through all tenses of time. For example, all debates and hypotheses that create a base for understanding algorithms. Sometimes old theories are nullified, sometimes what was not accepted in olden times is revisited in present. Labhartak. We can loosely translate it as the knowledge that was, is being, or will be achieved in all tenses of time. For example, all achievements that are being made as end result of knowledge. Like we developed cell phones to communicate, planes to travel, and high-speed trains are now developed on previous based technologies. This all-encompassing fourfold view is also endorsed by Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji and Acharya Vishnumitra in his commentary on the Rigved Pratishakha. As of present, the Vedic knowledge is available through its 4 Samhitas or treaties, though they may not be available in their entirety. Now, does this mean that all the limitless, all-encompassing knowledge was penned down in 4 limited books? Well, yes and no, depending upon our perception. In humans, the process of learning, unlearning, and relearning is continuous. So when we revisit a knowledge, it appears in a different form each time. Ved literature can be accepted as a systemized arrangement of this process of continuous expansion of knowledge, which we find is algorithmic and not random. So to each one, it unveils things on the same 4 fundamentals of Siddhanta Kaumudi at different levels of intellect. For example, let us consider the search engine Google. Google catalogs all available information on base fundamental algorithms, which helps it grow its database in an exponential yet quantifiable way. Each individual searches Google as per his or her own intellect for their end purpose. So a same topic can be presented as good or evil depending on each one's perspective on the data they searched or compared. However, Google does not make these decisions for them. It just presents knowledge in a way we want it to be seen. Similarly, the Vedic knowledge, being limitless, timeless, it was passed in a systemic algorithmic form which was quantifiable, approachable, and in due time self-revealing of its exponential possibilities to each one as per their vision and intellect. The best example of this process can be understood from the human DNA, which is arranged as a coil of coils, and so on. This arrangement allows 3 billion base pairs to fit into a space of just 6 microns in each human cell. Science postulates that if the DNA in one cell is stretched all the way out, it would be about 2 meters long, and if all the DNA in all the cells in one human body would be put together, it would measure about twice the diameter of a solar system. The same analogy must be understood of Ved. It sustains all knowledge through time and space, but it is arranged in minute systemic coils of Vedic literature which need to be unwound. To unwind the Vedic literature through the ages, many tools were developed like the Shakhas, Vedanga, Pratishakha, which we will have a look at a bit later in this video. So this brings the question, when and how and who systemized the Vedas? How did they themselves realize it? When did they learn it? From whom did they learn it? Though there are varied arguments put forth towards origin of Ved, we can generalize them into 2 constructs. One which considers them divine envisions far from human imperfections. They themselves are the seed through which all cosmos expands and ultimately dissolves. Hence they are known as aparushya, or without origin and end. The other view which considers them to be human. As per Sayanacharya, Ved literature is not created by anyone. It is hence nitya or eternal. But the question arises, how were they envisioned? Manusmriti says that they were envisioned as Shruti or in form of sound. This eternal truth in form of sound which is heard and perceived is known as Shabda. Scholars explain Shabda as synonymous to a word. Words are constructed in many languages and are a form of Shabda, but Shabda is not word. Shabda also is not just speech or sound, though connected with it. Hearing simply does not indicate sound, but all that is there to be heard, perceived, understood, and realized in form of that sound. Let us cite an example, though it is not an ideal one. There are 7 basic music notes or sounds if we exclude the microtones. Each and every tune ever created, is being created, or will be created originates from the same 7 notes. If we know these notes thoroughly in form of their sounds in all pitches, known as swara in Indian classical music, it is very easy to construct and deconstruct any composition. It is quite logical to ascertain that these base fundamental notes were first envisioned or systemized through auditory and not visual parameters. Their visual notation just served as a representation of the sound. Similarly, Vedic envisions were understood in form of sound. These were the fundamental vibrations. They were visualized in an all-encompassing form of the supreme Dhvani of Pranava or Om, represented by the following syllable. And from the Pranava were decoded the Vedic Dhvani or 52 fundamental sounds of Vedic Samskrita to create Varna or letters and then Shabda or words. These sounds were normalized to 48 by Panini, which we now follow as classical Sanskrit. Each dhvani is fundamentally a sound, which when heard in a specific pitch, accent and meter, either alone or in combination, transfers a perceptible and unique form of knowledge. This logical approach of phonetic transfer can be understood loosely with an example. Dhvani is a moving sound through space that manifests syllables or varna through unique vibrations. Varna can be defined as the letter substance manifested by sound like a or a. The pitch or the high, mid and low tone with which it is heard or uttered are the characteristic of that sound. So Varna or syllables is nothing but a sound form or visual letter used in languages. These Varnas are also known as Akshar. Shabda or word is a group of syllables or sounds. As Patanjali describes, Tasmada Dhvani Shabda, hence it is sound that is a word. This implies it need not be written but can be comprehended with the sound. Many of us compare the Varna of Vedic Sanskrit as similar to alphabets of English language. But there is a subtle difference between the notion of alphabet and the Varna. When we think of the word alphabet for English, we normally think of the 28 letters of the language and a name given to each letter to identify it. In most languages, the letters of the alphabet have names, which may give a clue to the sound associated with the letter. In Sanskrit, there is no specific name given to the letters. The sound the letter stands for is actually the name for the letter, and hence we define them as letter sounds. For example, in English language, the following alphabet denotes its written form, but not the sound. It is sounded as C or C, depending upon how we pitch the sound. But in Dhvani form, each of this pitch is unique, and the written Shabda will represent it. The sound C will be understood as a combination of Sa, which is a Vyanjana or consonant which has no audible sound of its own unless we add the swara E, which here we can refer to as a vowel, in its pitch of low tone to make it C. Now similarly, if I want to construct the mid-pitch sound C, I will get the same swara E in its mid-tone to get C. Hence one can infer that in a phonetic mode or Shruti, the knowledge is preserved and transferred without any aberrations, provided the intonation parameters are known. Now the final question is, who heard this Shruti first? It is depicted that the ones who envisioned them first were known as Rishi. Through the purification of their mind, they were able to hear accurately these words of wisdom. The word Rishi is originated from the root Rish, which means gati or movement, Satya, which can be translated as truth, Tapa, which can be translated as focus, and Shruti, which can be translated as hearing, along with the suffix in, as per the Unadi Sutra. Hence, the etymology of the conjoined word Rishi in this context of establishment works out as Mantra Rashtra as per the Unadi Sutra. Though the term mantra has larger meaning, here it refers to constructs of words or vibrations that instill one pointed concentration. We can loosely translate them as hymns. Similarly, as per the Nirukta or etymology of Vedanga, Rishi is defined as Rishir Darshanat, one who has witnessed this limitless, timeless truth. So Rishis heard the Dhvani known as Shruti and envisioned them. They were just witness to them and not their creators. Hence, as per Sayanacharya, even though Ved are apurusha or without authorship, the Rishis to whom these vibrations were revealed, to them those individual sounds are attributed. Hence, the grammarian Katyayan says, Yasya Vakyam Sa Rishi, which means the Rishi who revealed the Shruti, that Shruti, it's attributed to him. The 7 great sages or Sapta Rishis are thought of being the earliest recipient of Vedic Shruti. We can now infer how the Saptarishis imbibed the Dhvani or primordial sound and envisioned their Varna or syllable form and put forth the Shabda form as mantra or hymns. Though these 3 processes are solitary, they appear simultaneously to the mind, and hence it's put that the Rishis heard the sounds and envisioned the mantras. Hence they are rightly called Mantra Drashta, which can be loosely translated as witness to this divine process and not the creators. So now it will be quite simple to understand why the other school of thought regards Ved as of human origin, because they attribute the knowledge to be created by the Rishis and not divine or apurusha or without authorship. This view is not only restricted to modern Indologists like Maurice Vintonitz, who defines Ved just as plain knowledge, but not as the all-encompassing, limitless, all-pervasive knowledge as defined by Siddhanta Kaumudi, or like Max Muller and Wilson, who define Ved as its text or Sahita and nothing more. But we also find an in-between projection in the Nyaya and Vaisheshik school of Indian philosophy. For example, the following aphorism of Nyaya and Vaisheshik in a nutshell inform that Vedic knowledge is of definitive authorship. They attribute this authorship to Param Ishwar or Supreme God. So they accept the Ved as all-encompassing knowledge but do not consider them apurusha or without authorship. The apurusha-purusha debate of Ved has many layers and beyond the scope of this video. The video aims to put forth all schools of thought in an unbiased way for viewers to derive their own interpretation. However, before moving ahead, I would like to present a very important description by Sayanacharya, which may help viewers understand how intricate this argument is with respect to perspectives and interpretation. An adjective attributed to Rishis is Mantrakrit, which is accepted by mostly all schools of thought. In general, it translates as Rishis are creator of mantras. The point of contention here is the word Krut, which represents the dhatu or verb form Karoti. Its general meaning is accepted as doing or creating, but Sayanacharya explains us to infer it as witnessing. So moving on, Rishis heard these fundamental vibrational sounds or Shruti and envisioned their visual form in shape of mantra as verse and Brahmans as prose. Hence, Bodhayan and Apastamba define Ved as the conjoined text of this mantra and Brahmans. This is also reflected in the Hiranyakeshi Shrauta Sutra and in the Sabaras commentary on the Mimamsa Darshan. Though we do not have a direct reference of how this oral expanse of mantra and Brahmans would have been systematically classified and passed from its conception to what we have in a present form of 4 Veds. There are certain references which point to its nature, especially in the Purans. The Agni Puran, Vishnu Puran, Vayu Puran and Padma Puran are of the opinion that there is only one Ved, whose literature is classified in 4 parts or quartet. This seems as a good pointer. Though Vedic literature is composed of mantra and Brahman, as per its structure and application, it is understood in following 4 distinct parts. Samhita. Samhita is the continuous hymnical text of the Ved as formed out of pada or individual words by proper phonetic changes. Samhita means association or compilation. In simple words, Samhita is the portion of Ved where mantra are associated and compiled. The mantra in Samhitas are compiled under the title Sukta. A Sukta is a group of mantra. Each Sukta has particular Rishi who is the seer of the mantra or who has envisioned it, Devta or the deity devoted by the Sukta, Artha or the aim of the mantra, and Chanda or the meter of the Sukta. Brahman. The Brahmans are ritualistic texts and include spiritual duties. They contain explanation of the mantra and practical directions for the conduct of yajna, which we can loosely translate as sacrificial rituals. Aranyak. The word Aranya means forest. The Aranyaks is a part of Ved which states a class of religious and philosophical writings connected with the Brahmans, which are either composed in solitude of forest or must be studied there. Upanishad. The Upanishad forms the final portion of the Ved and therefore called the Vedanta or the end of the Ved. Vedanta consists of the core of all Vedic teaching. Though classified as distinct, viewers may note that the Aranyaks and Upanishad form the concluding portion of several Brahmans. To show the interrelationships of Vedic literature, it is said that if Ved is envisioned like a tree, the Brahmans are its branches, Aranyak are the flowers which grow on those branches, and Upanishad are its fragrance. So it implies that the Upanishads are the supreme essence of the Ved. The Upanishad, like the Ved, are hence regarded as Shruti. The Samhita, Brahman, Aranyak and Upanishad represent 4 stages of development of Vedic literature in the same order from the nature of the subject matter dealt. The Samhita and Brahman portions together are known as Karmakand, since they are mainly concerned with sacrifice and other rituals. The Aranyaks are known as Upasana Kand, since they deal with worship and meditation, and the Upanishads as Jnana Kand, as they are source of ultimate knowledge, the eternal truth, the Vedas themselves. The Vedic literature was vast and it was difficult to study or comprehend it with time, as it was passed to people of lesser intellect who were not as enlightened as the Saptarishi. Hence, it was divided in a quartet of 4 Vedas. Vishnu Puran states that this division occurs in the Dwapar Yuga of each Manvantar. Manvantar or age of Manu is an astronomical period of time measurement as per Sanatan Dharma. Since Vedic astronomy is a huge subject, I will cover it in another video. I will just use relevant references here for brevity. Each Manvantar contains 71 Mahayuga, where Yug is an epoch or era containing of 4 divisions of Sata, Treta, Dwapar and Kali Yuga. We are currently in the 28th Mahayuga of the 7th Manvantar as per Vedic calculations. And it's so, this division of Ved as of present has occurred 28 times. The Rishi who made this division each time is known as Vyas, which translates as one who divides. Kurma Puran gives name of these 28 Vyasas. The 28th Vyas is Krishna Dvampayam, who divided the Ved into 4 of its current form of Rig, Yajur, Sam and Atharva Ved, seeing the low intellect of humans like ourselves. As per references in the Samaved, Vyas handed over a Rigved Samhita called Bhavrij to a disciple named Pel, a Yajurved Samhita called Nigadakya to Vaishampayam, a Samaved Samhita called Chandog to Jaimini, and an Atharved Samhita called Angirasi to Sumantu. These four disciples propagated the four Ved. This is why the respective disciple is called the Rishi of the corresponding Ved manuscript. We also find a mention of this in the commentary of Mahidhar on Yajurved. Before moving ahead, here I want to inform viewers that Vedic traditions and scholars consider Yajurved to be composed of two parts, Shukla Yajurved and Krishna Yajurved. The two parts are attributed to the two schools of thoughts or Sampradaya of Yajurved, Brahma Sampradaya, to which Krishna Yajurved is affiliated, and Aditya Sampradaya, to which the Shukla Yajurved is affiliated. Shukla Yajurved is also known as Vajaseniya Samhita and Madhyandina Samhita. Though matter in both Samhita is common, the difference between the two Yajurved is their arrangement or form. Shukla Yajurved consists of mantra or the verse portion, especially for Dash and Purnamas Yajna, while Krishna Yajurved is a compilation of mantra and Brahman or the prose portion of the same. The Rig, Yajur and Samved are focused on Yajna or sacrificial fires. The Rig Ved is in form of Padya, which can be understood as verse, Yajurved in form of Gadya or prose, and Samaved in form of Giti or vocals. In inference, it shows the interconnectivity of these three Ved. It tells us that the super divine hymns of Rig Ved are explained in terms of application and implementation through the prose of Yajurved, while the Samved informs in exact manner how to incant them with proper meter, accent and atonement. The Yajurved originated from Samved and Samved from Rigved. This entire interconnection is mentioned in the Purush Sukta of Rigved. Each of these three Ved is associated with a priest responsible for its contents during a yajna. They are Hotru, Advaryu and Udgatru. Hence, these three are called Vedatrayi or triads. Many scholars hence accept only three Ved. Since the Atharva Ved included mantras concerned with occult like Jaran, Maran, Vashikaran and political actions, it was of entirely no use in performing sacrificial fires, and hence it may have not been included or referenced in terms of sacrificial rites. However, with passage of time, it came to be used in performing yajnas, and so was accorded a position of equality with other Ved. Brahma is associated with Atharva Ved as its priest. There is a bit more to the debate about the placement of Atharva Ved as the fourth Ved. The earliest reference to the word Atharva Ved is found not before the Sutra literature of Sankhya, which was composed much later, but the oldest referential name Atharva Angirasa are found in several other places in the Ved. Are these references related or independent? Since this argument is beyond the scope of the video as it concerns with human perceptions of Vedic knowledge towards specifically yajna or sacrificial rituals, I have only covered it from the point of reference. As all-encompassing knowledge is concerned, we must logically focus on all four Vedas. These four Vedas each consist of their own Samhita in form of mantra, Brahman, Aranyak and Upanishad. Since each Vedic school propagated that knowledge through generations via various students, in due course of time, each Ved was studied as a distinct study group. To give an analogy, we can refer to the subject maths. As maths is studied in various forms like algebra, geometry, etc., and within those forms, distinct subforms may emerge depending on teaching style or subject associated. Similarly, the vast Vedic literature got divided in various study groups. The study groups associated with a particular Ved hence became its identity. In due course, to preserve distinct unique identity with affiliation to a Ved, or sometimes even to a part of a Ved, that school of thought was ascribed to its originator. This school of thoughts were known as Shakas, which translate as recension or branches of the Ved. The people who studied specifically these recensions were collectively known as Charan. Sometimes this word is hence used synonymously to Shaka, though Charan properly applies to the set or collection of persons united in one school, and Shaka to the traditional text followed. As is evident in the phrase Shakham Adite, he recites a particular version of the Ved. The numerical enumeration of shakas of each Ved differs across literature. Patanjali has mentioned 21 for Rig Ved, 101 for Yajur Ved, 1000 for Sam Ved, and 9 for Atharva Ved. However, the traditional school of information on the shakas of each Ved is known as the Charanavyu, of which two most similar versions exist. The 49 Parishishta of Atharva Ved ascribed to Shaunak, and the 5th Parishishta of the Shukla Yajur Ved ascribed to Katyayana. These have lists of the numbers of recensions that were believed to have once existed, as well as those still extant at the time their works were compiled. As of present, only a small number of recensions have survived. The shakas slowly developed Vedanga, which became a necessary condition for mastering the Ved. Kavya Shastra defines the term Anga as by which one comes to acquire the knowledge of the disposition of a particular thing. Therefore, the derivative meaning of the word Anga is helper, which helps to understand a thing properly. Hence, Vedanga help us understand the Ved in an elaborate way. The earliest reference to the term Vedang occurs in the Shadvansh Brahman of Samved, where they are attributed as the limbs of goddess Swaha. But their individual names are first mentioned in the Mundak Upanishad of Atharva Ved. They are 6 in number: Shiksha, dealing with pronunciation; Chanda, with meter; Vyakran, with grammar; Nirukta, with etymology; Jyotish, with astronomy; and Kalpa, with ceremonials. The main aim of Shiksha and Chanda are to give correct and metered pronunciation of the mantra. Vyakran and Nirukti, through grammar and etymology, give proper knowledge about word constructs, and their applicable meaning in a context. Jyotish deals with astronomy related to giving correct times as per seasons and days. The Kalpa contain various aspects of ceremonies. They contain the Kalpa Sutra, which are the manuals on rituals. There are 4 divisions of them. The Shrauta Sutra deal with rules relating to big sacrifices like the Ashwamedh. The Griya Sutra deals with rules relating to domestic rites like Agnihotra. The Dharma Sutra deals with dharma or codes of laws. The Sulva Sutra deal with measurements, especially for yajnas. The Vedanga are hence divided into 2 parts according to their subject matter. Among them, the Nirukta, Chanda and Vyakran are Artha Pradhan, or mainly meaning based, and the rest 3, Shiksha, Kalpa and Jyotish, are Yajna Pradhan, or mainly deal with sacrificial ritual. The first 4 Vedang help the readers to pronounce correctly and understand the Vedic text. The remaining 2 deals with religious rites and duties and their proper seasons. Hence, Vedanga gives a complete applicative knowledge of Ved. Vedanga class of literature was written in a form of expression characterized by great precision, brevity and economy of words. This style, most commonly known as Sutra style, became a dominant feature of the various branches of Vedanta. Therefore, the age of Vedanta was considered as Sutra period. The Ved are the collection of lots of mantra or hymns. Each mantra has a definite chanda or meter, definite accent, and has definite pronunciation. Without those, a mantra does not produce the result. For example, the uttering of Vedic mantra by different classes of priests was different. The Hodru uttered the Ruchas with his normal voice. The Advaryu uttered the Yajus silently, while the Udgatra chanted Samans loudly. This differentiation of pronunciation first created Shaka or branches and then Vedanga. Generally, it was found that even after the development of Vedanga, the phonetic expression, accentuation, morphology and metrics, all these concerns were requiring more expositions for the Vedic studies. Many attribute this to the fact that since origin of Ved, when they were transmitted orally, with passage of time as classical languages and written scripts developed, it became difficult for students to imbibe Vedic mantra on lines of accent, alphabet, mora, etc., without having proper knowledge of the rules and regulations of Vedanga. As such, the development of Pratishaka for those particular branches was necessitated. and subsequently the Pratishaka texts were developed for each and every particular branch of Vedic school. Pratishaka literature deals with the phonetic and morphological treatment of the Vedic mantra. It lays down rules for the proper pronunciation, intonation, and preservation of certain phonetic peculiarities pertaining to recitation. But the question may arise, what's the difference between Pratishaka and Vedanga? Though it is an elaborate discussion, again out of scope of this video, I will give a brief note. The 6 Vedanga are restricted only to their particular domain. For example, the Shiksha Vedanga deals only with phonetic treatment of Ved, where Chanda Vedanga deals with the metrical treatment of Ved. In short, Vedanga deal only with the particular assets of Ved and can be one-dimensional. But the Pratishaka deals with the necessitate concerns of a particular Ved, as all-inclusive, or in brief can elaborate on multiple aspects to study a mantra as complete. So for the correct pronunciation of Vedic mantra and for understanding their meanings, the knowledge of Pratishaka is essential. The 4 Ved are like the 4 trees and its shakhas are like the branches of trees. The branches of the great tree are numerous and it is impossible to ascertain their number. And from these particular branches of Ved, the Pratishakas have developed. Briefly summarizing, Ved means eternal truth that encompasses all that is known, is in process of knowing and to be known. This was heard as Shruti by Saptarishis in form of Dhvani. They then envisioned these sounds as Varna or syllable and then arranged them as Shabda or words. These Shabda were then systemized and put forth in form of mantra or hymns in verse and Brahmans as prose. They were then passed orally as single Ved. With time, as intellect of humans depleted, to preserve the knowledge, the vast Ved was divided into 4 Sahitas by Rishi Vyasa, Rig, Yajur, Sam and Atharva Ved, which had their own mantra and Brahman. Each Ved with time got studied differently, which led to different school of thoughts known as Shaka. To understand each of the Shakas, which in brief expounded the same knowledge but in their own unique form, Vedangas were developed. However, with development of classical languages and different written scripts, it became difficult to decipher these Shakas. There were numerous Shakas for each Ved or even for a part of that Ved. Vedangas were proving to be one-dimensional and hence Pratishaka were developed, which helped understand these Shakas from an all-inclusive perspective. Viewers may have noted that I have refrained from giving the analytical and structural data of each Ved to maintain the brevity of this video. There may be certain parts in the video where viewers may have felt I should have elaborated more, like Vedangas or the concept of Dhvani, and certain parts might have looked stretched out. This was just an intuitive call. Each aspect of Ved is multidimensional and it would require a series of videos to expound on them. There are a lot of videos and lectures on the internet by amazing scholars and I would request the viewers to watch them for deeper insights. Through NLAM, my only aim is to bring forth these topics in an easy and unbiased manner to viewers who are new to the subject or who have a one-dimensional approach towards Ved. I would also like to take this opportunity to inform the viewers that all NLAM videos are solely created by me without any funding and support. Though an effort is made to present these topics with proper research in an unbiased manner, I do acknowledge the fact that presentations of such nature will have mistakes in terms of pronunciation, transliteration and grammar. Though they are not intentional, I do apologize for the same. I hope this video was informative and made the subject clear. Thank you for watching. Pranam.